This is the calm before the lightning storm. Here from Amalie Arena, home of the NHL's Tampa Bay Lightning, the 3 periods of leadership with veteran Lightning goaltending coach FRANTZ on this segment of Leaders and Legends.
All right, let's go. Let's try not to fall.
We're calling this the 3 periods of leadership, and few can articulate better on this subject than FRANTZ, veteran goaltending coach, Tampa Bay Lightning, 15 years in the NHL, 4 conference championships, 2 Stanley Cup finals. The Lightning, one of the premier teams, not just in the NHL, but all of professional sports. You're in the pressure cooker all the time. Describe, before we get into the 3 periods, what it feels like, FRANTZ, to be inside the kind of pressure cooker that represents your professional existence.
Well, it's short nights a lot of times because you're constantly planning, constantly thinking of scenarios and how you're going to deal with them. So you want to make sure that you have you have a response to when the wheels fall off. You want to have a response when things are going really well, and you want to keep the train on the track. So it's a lot of planning ahead. I find to be in this pressure cooker, because you never really get comfortable. You never really get into a phase where you're coasting, or you're just you're just going at the same speed. Like, you always it's going well, you're looking 2-3 steps ahead, and try to plan for it, and try to make sure that when different scenarios happen, you have an answer for it and you have a solution.
So it's a lot like real life business these days, exactly, where you have to really get comfortable being uncomfortable.
It's exactly the same. And the way you said it is exactly right. You have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, comfortable with the suck, with the grind. You gotta enjoy it. Basically, you got to embrace it and make it part of your DNA and what you do every day, and so that it becomes. Not seamless, but it becomes an everyday thing. You know what I mean? You're able to navigate it without too much stress.
We're calling this the 3 periods of leadership because I think it really does speak to your journey, FRANTZ, both personally and professionally, and the fact that you've been around leadership your whole life in competitive sports, now in the National Hockey League. Period number 1, patience.
Yes.
Let's talk about the value of patience, because you said something the other day about just how long it takes. For example, you're the goaltending coach, how long it takes to develop a player.
100%.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on patience.
For example, in what I do, like, to know exactly what you have, it takes about 300 professional games for a goaltender. Okay, so you're talking probably 150 starts in the minors, 150 start in the NHL, and then you kind of know what you have. You know if you have a number 1, you know if you have a backup, you know if you have a minor leaguer. So 300 pro game is a long time. When you look at 30, 40 starts a year, you're talking 5-6 years down the road. So I think, I've been fortunate enough to work in business before I worked full-time in hockey. And to be working at the junior level, the NHL level, and I worked in Europe. And the successful leaders all have that trait of character, which is patience. They're able to gather information and take thoughtful decisions, not being in a hurry, not being pressed by time. They're able to really kind of slow things down before they take their decisions. Okay, and I always notice that in the GMs I've worked with over the years, the really good ones, the exceptional ones, the head coaches that I've worked with, And I think it's a big part of the success we've had in Tampa with our goaltending.
It's interesting because as a rule now, patience doesn't seem to be
No.
it's not the current hot thing.
Yes, you're going against the current when you're patient in today's world.
Right. And so the reason I wanted to ask you about this, because you told me, okay, top-notch NHL guys like Ben Bishop and Andrei Vasilevsky, these are top professionals. You were saying that's about a 5-year process. But talk to us about your GM. Talk to us about your head coach, John Cooper, and what you see in their leadership makeup that speaks to patience.
Well, I was lucky enough. I got hired by Steve Yzerman when I got hired here in Tampa Bay, and longtime captain of the Detroit Red Wings, 20 plus years as captain, a Hall of Famer, assistant GM, who is now our GM, Julien Brisebois, who's been in hockey since he's in his mid-20s, and he's in his mid-40s now. So very influential person in the NHL. And you have John Cooper, who's who's going to end up as one of the winningest coach in the history of the NHL. The big thing in all of them is that they gather information. They ask questions to the people that they've hired around them to work in different aspects of the operation. And they take the information and they retreat. They sit back and mull over that information for a bit, and then they make a decision. I don't remember seeing those leaders take decision abruptly, without gathering information. So the intel is extremely, extremely important, and then to be able to go through that information, that intel, and being able to pinpoint what's important for your business, for your hockey club. And then being able to take the right decision to be able to continue moving forward.
So I think this is an interesting piece, Frantz, because whether it's you working specifically with a player
Yes.
in your role, or senior management levels like Julien Brisebois and John Cooper, responsible for more strategic direction,
Yes.
Patience seems to be a common denominator. It's like our friend Alan Power likes to say, it's process before the prize.
100%. A process before results. The results is kind of the end of the road, But there's a lot of process that you have to go through a process before getting to that result, And it's it's something that you can use within your business, within sports, but within your life also, when you have to make those big decisions. But patience is certainly, when I look at the leaders I've been lucky enough to work with over the years, which are legendary Hall of Famers for the most of them, that's certainly one of the trait of characters that I've seen.
Well, you're talking about the elite of the elite. You're talking about folks that are at the top of their game. And even they recognize they can't do it alone. They need a team around them. They need folks to help guide them. They need coaches to help call balls and strikes. They want to go out there and they want to perform and they want to get better at what they do. And the team around them and the coaches around them help them to do exactly that.
Second period, mindset, mental toughness.
Yes.
Vision.
Yes.
Speak to us in the second period about what you've seen, what you've experienced about mindset, a championship mindset.
Mindset is everything. It's everything. Probably even more over skill. Okay? So you have people that are really skilled at what they do, and that are really good at what how they go about their business. But if you don't have the resilient mindset of pushing through an adversity, being able to go through the hurdles, the challenges that you find along the way, because you will find them.
82 game schedule.
They
I'm
will be
thinking
there.
you're not going to win them all.
They will be there. So if you have that mindset of pushing through and being able to manage those challenges and and respect the process that you have established.
So
you
what's
know,
the secret?
from the-
What
from
have
the
you
start.
noticed? What have you noticed around that? Because you're a great observer of not just talent on the ice, but I know you watch off the ice too.
For me, it's what I've observed is it's planning. People that have success have a plan. That's what I've noticed over the year. They have a plan, and do they adjust the plan along the way? They might adjust the plan along the way, but the big pieces of the plan don't change that much. Okay, and it's being able to be resilient to see the plan through. It's very easy to start going through your plan, and then you have hurdles and everything, and solely decide to change the path, or change the driving lane, and not continue where you're going. You learn, and you've heard that a million times. You learn a lot more from your challenging and getting through those challenging than the easy path when you get from A to B like super easy.
Well, you're really echoing the work of Carol Dweck, who wrote the book Mindset, which is now considered a classic, and the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset, and the growth mindset welcomes those challenges you just described.
When you say you got to enjoy the challenges and enjoying the grind, it's exactly that. I'm a big believer in resiliency. Being resilient in every aspect of life. When you run a business, you have to be resilient, because there'll be months where it's going to be difficult to make payroll, and you have to be able to see it through, and in sports, there'll be sequences where you're going to lose 5, 6, 7, 8 games in a row. How do you react to that? Do you lose your marbles, or you actually stay patient, stick with the process, stick with your plan, adjust if you need to, but at the end of the day, be resilient in everyday approach with the players and what you do on the ice. So it's for me, resiliency is a big part of the recipe for success. I think in any part of life, I'm a big believer.
We are in an empty arena. They're on the ice hour after hour after hour, making sure they're ready for game time tonight. Nobody sees this. Nobody sees the work behind the work. They don't see the hours that these guys put in. They don't see the coach making his players better, shot after shot after shot. That's what you don't see in business as well. All of the work that goes into game night, a board meeting. You think they've got it. They're at the highest levels. You're talking about the Lightning, Stanley Cup champions, time after time after time. Look at all those banners. At the end of the day, all of this work in a dark arena is what goes into making those good decisions in a business setting as well.
Period number 3. Now we're getting down to the final 20 minutes. Decisions. Decisions, tough decisions. Who to sit, who gets to play, who gets sent to the minors. There's so many human decisions that get made, and then there's the decisions in the heat of battle. And you had a front row seat recently, the Four Nations face-off. John Cooper's the coach. Jordan Binnington had fallen out of favor with much of the Canadian public, as you know.
Yeah.
And what does he do? Does he stick with the beleaguered goaltender, or does he give somebody else a shot? Tell us a little bit about what coaches go through, leaders go through, when the decisions got to be made in the heat of battle.
It's really interesting, Gare, because we are in this. We take multiple decisions every day in what we do, and it's really interesting. As a young coach, and even when I worked in the business world before coaching, you always thought there was a right decision and wrong decision. Okay, the older you get, the more experience you get, you kind of realize that most of the time there's no right or wrong decision. There's the decision you commit to. Okay, so you take a decision, and I think the most important thing is not necessarily the decision you make, it's the commitment you make to that decision and being able to see it through. The easiest thing is making a decision and you see it's not going as change right away. You know what I mean? Make a quick change. Take it. That's the easiest thing. You can do that 5 times before you get to the end result. But to be able to say, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. Now I'm putting my best resources towards that, and we're moving forward. And all our energy, all our resource, all our thinking, all our execution is to get to the decision we've made, to the end of the decision
What's
we've
the
made.
best story you can share when you've seen that happen,
there's,
especially in the heat of a game?
There's so many, you get into a situation where for me, for example, in my day-to-day sometimes is, do we pull the goalie or not, after a difficult period, or a half game, and for me, I don't see it as a right or wrong decision. I see it as I make a decision, what I feel with the information I'm gathering. I take a lot of notes during the game. I look at the information I gather. I make a decision. I stick with it. Do we're trailing 2-0 in a series. Do we make a change in net? You take that decision. You stick with this decision as you move on. For example, at the World Cup, I think John Cooper deserves all the credit because there was a lot of outside noise. He made the decision to stick with Bennington, and he stuck with it. Even if Bennington had a kind of a rocky start to the game, he stuck with this decision. He was positive with the decision he made. His narrative was positive with the media, with the decision he made in keeping Bennington in the net or playing him in the last game. And at the end of the day, the athlete felt that. And the athlete felt that he had a responsibility to respond and to step up for the coach, for the team, for the country, right? And he did. He was better as the game went on, and he was arguably the best player in overtime. You know what I mean? So, it's basically, I think, for me, in life, there's not so much right or wrong decisions. It's really making a commitment to the decisions you're taking.
That's interesting, and we'll wrap it up here. Right now, there's a trend, especially at senior leadership levels, towards consensus and inclusion.
Yes.
But when it comes to decisions, what you're describing, that's not always possible.
It's not always possible. I think you need to have a leader. Obviously, you have to have someone who at the end of the day takes the decision. Okay, I think it's very, very hard to have consensus and that everybody on agreeing with the decisions you're going to take ultimately. I haven't been in a lot of situations in my life in business and sports where everybody agrees on the decision that has been taken. But I think as a co-worker, as a soldier, I think when the leadership takes the decision, you have a responsibility to do whatever you can to make that decision successful. And I think that's a big part of the challenge of successful companies, a big part of the challenge of successful decision making, or decision taking. I think it's a question of making sure that after the decision is taken, that even if you don't agree with it, that you're able to see the value in it and move forward and do your part, your role into bringing this decision to fruition.
3 periods of leadership. And now, FRANTZ, we're in overtime. And you get to pick the topic. If there's a leadership topic, see, we're tied at the end of 3 periods. And now FRANTZ doesn't know, because that's what the beauty of overtime is we don't know what could happen in any given moment. If you look that camera right in the eye and you've got one topic about leadership, one message about leadership, in OT when all the pressure is on,
Yes.
what would you tell that person watching right now?
For me, I think that the topic that interests me is hiring the right people. How do you hire the right people? How do you hire the people that complete you as a leader? With time, with experience, you realize that being in a room with people that have the same background as you, same skill set, doesn't bring necessarily any added value to your business or to what you do. I think it's extremely important to diversify culturally your business, gender wise. Also, I think people with different ideas, different walk of life, and I think you need to hire people that are better than you, sometimes smarter than you, and being able to tap into their knowledge. And I think that makes leaders better, when you're able to do that. And I look at the best leaders that I've come across. They've all hired extremely competent people that have a really good knowledge and that bring something different to the business and allow it to grow.
It does start at the top, this whole leadership
Yes.
issue. And through 3 periods of leadership with FRANTZ Jean, goaltending coach with the Tampa Bay Lightning, the puck stops here.
Hopefully.
FRANTZ,
Yes.
thank you so much for doing
Thank you,
this.
Garrett. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, pleasure's all ours. And thank you for watching Leaders and Legends, where you never know who you're going to meet or what you'll discover.